I did this drawing for Valentine's Day, and if you don't know who this character is, it's Acacia Murray from Dragon Mirrors. She is presenting you a piece of chocolate, and from the looks of it, you took a bite. Hello, ladies and lords. I've been wanting to post some videos, and long story short, my voice, I lost it for like a few days. Thank you so much for those I think it was like 3 people who voted on my poll about what I should cover on this channel. I appreciate those who have subscribed. I believe I have 49 subscribers at the moment. I'm gonna say once we hit our first 100 subscribers, I'm going to do a free art giveaway. I do appreciate you guys being here. Day 16, writing romance advice. I've been searching for a topic for my upcoming video, so I'm stealing this. Don't be afraid to experiment. Know what your readers love about your romance and grow from there. I don't know why I didn't delete a thread. My brain. I'm doing the Fantasy Indies February's today, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically monthly challenges that have prompts. I first did it January, and it was pretty fun, challenging and fun. And today I'm doing February, and today's topic was advice for writing romance. I ended up writing a thread, and then I was just thinking about you guys over here, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna write this for you guys as well. What I'm talking about is the stigma, and I think most of them are writers. I don't want to point fingers, but I think most of them are writers. I don't have anyone in mind because I easily forget people's names, but I kind of want to offer like this ground level on the writing process in terms of writing romance, the tug of war that romance offers in books. And that's mostly when you think they're about to get together, but then some exterior force, be it a family member or a villain, an antagonist, or some event separates them. You know, that is like the struggle we want to see in romance, because if the characters just get together in chapter 1, you know, what else is there to read? Granted, that's not always the process you have to write. You don't always have to have these characters fall in love. Sometimes they could already be in love. They could already be partners. And I've seen readers asking for authors to write these type of stories where these characters are already together, but it's not the same romance as it was. The relationship has changed, be it through time, the loss of a child, or some more, depending on what genre you write. But I'm Miriam Yvette, so we mostly talk about fantasy. In that regard, I think that also brings like an interesting viewpoint in terms of romance. And it's not something that I've been writing that I have any work in progress plans where the characters are already together. Most of the time my characters will be falling in love, but definitely something I may want to experiment in the future. And if you've already written that is awesome. You can either be very confident that you're going to write romance, like that is the niche you're going to hit, that's the genre you're going to just jump in. And I know that sometimes you may feel hesitant about it because you feel like maybe the romance is going to steal away from the main story. That's where you start to see blends of like romantic fantasy. It's not just romance fantasy, it's romantic fantasy. The main story is still the main juice, and the romance is like the subplot. And I've struggled with that with Dragon Mirrors because I felt like mine was a romance fantasy. However, I did have a reviewer who said it didn't feel like a romance fantasy. It felt just like fantasy to him, which I was pretty surprised by that. The main focus about Dragon Mirrors is that we are dealing with the Hunted Prince, who's a vampire who is not allowed to get close to an elf because it might lead to a tragic end to one of those characters. So that I found that really surprising. So the article calls romance readers titans, and reportedly buying and reading hundreds of books a year and fueling $1.4 billion or in the romance industry. 2018 study reported that 25% of all books, 1 out of the 2 mass market paperbacks sold, were romance novels. As of 2016, I don't know why they just went from 2018 to 2016, but whatever. As of 2016, 39.3% of the genre fiction on the market was romance. Mystery was not even close at 29.6%. Romance readers are avid readers and read across genres. 50% of them will try a new author, a much higher percentage than readers of other genres, which I think is really awesome. Just that if they are following an author who doesn't publish as many books as they can read, they're going to find a new author, right? And that should be something good. We want readers to jump around and find the books that they're thirsting for. I'm in some very spicy romance groups, and I love their energy. I love their demand for more. Here we can have like the crossroads where you might say, well, romance may be the top genre, but we're just talking about the market. How is it artistically? Romance is a form of writing that has existed since ancient Greeks, since the ancient Mayans, since the ancient Egyptians. You see stories of tragic, enduring love. I know to some it's not everyone's palate. I know that it may appear as icky to some readers who want something else to read, and that's totally fine. I'm sort of the way with movies, because I love romance in movies or in shows, but sometimes I get uncomfortable when they have to go under the covers. But thinking about it now, I think it's how the angle that they do it. Make it intimate first, build that up. You see that in books, the romance builds. One of my favorite books is Like Water for Chocolate, or in Spanish, Como Agua por Chocolate, para Chocolate. I've seen the movie and it is intense. And I think that's because I know, based off how the movie started, Tita and Pedro have this attraction, this faded attraction that you see in their eyes, in their behavior, and everything that they're willing to do to be together, that they suffer. And so the scenes don't really feel like the scenes are intense, but they feel natural. Certain movies can't replicate that. It's just, oh, she's hot or he's hot, and let's just go straight to the bed, which some readers want that. That's my taste. Tease me, show me bits, but don't give me the whole pie yet. I just give me a little taste, and then kind of show me where the aroma is coming from. Don't shove it in my face. Now we're going to talk about the bitter resentment that folks have towards romance writers. In fairness, I think this has less to do with them hating romance writers in a personal level, though sometimes from the way that people write, it appears that way. I think it has more to do with they probably think that it's easy to write or that it's too mainstream. I think it's a combination of both, maybe. But I've seen, certain people post and say things like, "Oh, be quiet, you're a romance writer. You're just a romance writer." Excuse me? Again, this is not a dig at people who do not read romance. This is just focusing on the ones who verbally or on social media go and use the term romance writers to attack a romance writer. Make that make sense, right? I think it's because they think it's easy to write and it's too mainstream. Because writing romance, it does depend on the pathos to appeal to readers and to give them that emotional connection. We're gonna do a little studies in case you guys forget. If you remember what pathos is, pathos appeals to emotion. So if you're trying to debate someone, you're trying to appeal to the audience by digging at their emotions. And logos appeals to reasoning, coming up with logical conclusions or bringing up facts or studies. And ethos, as you may know, appeals to your status. So, Let's say that here I am talking about romance, and let's say that the Queen, Nora Roberts of romance, is like, oh, Miriam is completely wrong. Like, her appeal to ethos, she would have her authority over romance over me is like humongous. Like, people are more likely to trust her over little itty bitty indie me. So those are the things: logos, ethos, and pathos. And I know I presented them like reverse. Forgive me. So these are appeals. They're also called like the rhetorical triangle. Hear me out. It's all gonna make sense to you in a bit. The reason why I mention these logos, ethos, and pathos is because in order for me to get my bachelor's, I had to do a study, and I used that to measure the top 2 news media use logos, ethos, and pathos to get a reaction out of their audience, out of their viewers. I use Fox News and I use MSNBC. I read countless of articles. I watched a lot of videos. I used the same dates. I used the same topic they were covering, and I was trying to see what they were appealing more. Were they saying words that appeals more to emotion to rile up their viewers? Were they using logos to give them just kind of like that neutral stand on certain topics? Or were they also using ethos? And I think this is like when they bring senators over or experts, they're appealing through ethos. So what the heck does that have to do with romance? Writing romance, I believe, depends on the pathos. We're trying to appeal to the readers and give them that emotional connection. And I think because we're trying to appeal to emotion, certain individuals may see it as a weakness, because emotions sometimes people consider as unsavory or lackluster. I think personally, this is just my opinion, but I think a good romance uses all 3: logos, pathos, and ethos, like any other genre would, to give the reader that realistic experience. I'm going to use Children of Rima because that's the current work in progress that I'm doing. And romance-wise, how will logos appeal to the audience that this is a romantic setting? Because this is a enemies to romance and it also has secret identity tropes, they dislike each other. They're just unbearable. And I give the reader several scenes where this happens. One of the biggest scenes is where Aline has this precious mug that her father gave her, and she has a lot of memories with that mug. It's a ceramic mug, mind you. It was given to her when her family was going through a hard time. It was winter, there was not enough money. Father was gone trying to sell all of his wares because there was no one going to their village. To Aline, it's pathos. It's an emotion. It's an emotional connection she has with the ceramic mug. When Lucan comes into the picture, he thought that this mug was made out of wood, and the mug breaks. It's mostly Lucan's fault because he had the option of preventing that. Now it's logos. Now we have reasons why Lucan and Aline dislike each other. We have more reasons than previously. Here we start coming up with logical arguments or explanations as to why they cannot be together. Lucan is definitely a jerk, or Aline is very insensitive. It was an accident. Ethos. Where does ethos go? This one could really depend if you're writing a romance where, say, the love interest is a prince or a princess or someone with higher authority that the MC doesn't match. But there's also another version. Ethos also can be the writer, could be the narrator, the person telling the story. Regardless of the point of view, if it's first person or third person, the reader has to trust the authority of the person telling the story. Of course, it's the writer, but if it's first person, it's the character that they have to trust. This sense of authority and trust can easily be broken. You unfairly treat a certain character. Granted, we're writers, we're gonna mistreat our MCs like there's no tomorrow, but sometimes writers do them in a certain way that doesn't appeal to the pathos or logos. It's just straight up bonkers. Some readers may like that. Most of them may see that it's lacking and it just seems out of the blue, which in turn, the reader may lose the respect or the authority of the narrator, the character, or the author. Pathos, I think you guys Well, no, this one. I mean, that's the main like drive for the romance genre. Pathos is trying to make the audience feel a type of emotion, mostly on the two extremes, which would be anger or sympathy. In Children of Rima, Lucan doesn't want to be in a committed relationship. He's kind of like out there sleeping around with people because he's a single man. He can do whatever he wants, right? This has to do with his experience with a serious relationship he was previously in. Though he was partially heartbroken by the experience, he has to keep his identity a secret, and having somebody close, it imposes a greater risk to him and the person that he may end up caring for. So that is an obstacle, a boundary. So all of these are, I believe, necessary ingredients to writing a good romance. It's the same type of style that we need when we need to write mystery, when we need to write sci-fi, thrillers, horror, all that jazz. Funny how we really didn't talk about the sex scenes, right? I do believe that you do not need to have any sex scenes to write a romance. You either get the fade to black, the kissing, the embrace, the first touch. In my fantasy books, I like to kind of walk you in blindfolded and then just kind of whisper in your ear and tell you what's going on, but you can't see. But it's you should read Dragon of Mirrors. I do not mind open door romance. I don't mind any of that. I don't mind the smuttiness. I don't. But see, here's what I do want. I want to feel like I have just been rewarded. Just like when you get the first kiss scene. I used to have this coworker. I never understood her. Okay, she was low-key mean. It was also more of how she carried herself, especially during lunch. You know, in the lunchroom, she would find a corner and just ignore everybody. But I understand why. She was reading romance books. I know, because I saw the book covers. It was a man with like pecs on him. I think freshly out of high school, so I should have known, like, this is a time where she just needs to be in this world. And it's not, that's what books are. You're escaping your own reality and you're living another life. I don't know who someone said that whenever you read a book, you have different lives. I need to find it. I need to find the quote. I don't want to say a quote and not know who said it. George R.R. Martin, he's the one who said it. He says, a reader lives 1,000 lives. Sorry, I clapped. A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives only one. That quote was taken, if I'm looking at Goodreads, the quote was taken from his book, A Dance with Dragons. If a reader says they don't want to read a romance book, like, who's going to force them? But writers who think that romance writers are less than them is ridiculous, in my opinion. The reason I write romance has a lot to do with my early roots as a writer. Even as a child, you know, everyone has certain imaginations during playtime, right? They would pretend they're a pirate or some regard. And I remember when I would play with my Barbies, I would give every Barbie a task, like a role. She's gonna fall in love with this G.I. Joe that I stole from my brother's room. She's gonna fall in love with him, but he doesn't know that he likes her because he's kind of looking at this other Barbie. And I was a kid. That may sound a little weird. I used to watch a lot of telenovelas. And I remember just laying down on the floor, just like watching the next episode. Telenovelas, if you've seen them, they have just about everything. They have a villain, they have action, they have car crashes, they have guns, death, of course, the romance, the protagonist, and the love interest trying to get together, but everyone else is trying to pull them apart. I think that watching that as a child, because obviously if you're Latina and you grew up with parents who love that type of stuff, it's going to be ingrained in you. And I think that was ingrained in my playtime. It became ingrained also in my writing, and I love it. And this could be said for people who, when they would play with their toys, it's like a Ninja Turtle toy fighting like Shredder, or I remember my brother, he would play, like he would make like these explosion sounds while he would play with his toys. And it was always something action, something like blowing up or some gun rattling, and that's also ingrained on them. How would a writer demean another writer's genre or the type of writing that they do? How would you devalue something that has strong roots to a writer's style? Doesn't make sense to me. But if you have any ideas as to why, or if you have experienced any of that, let me know. I'm interested to see what your experience was. All right, I think I talked enough. If you've listened to me this far, thank you so much for sticking with me. Until then, safe travels.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date. You're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase. So catch me if I fall.
En 1669, Brandt, un químico de Hamburgo, buscando la piedra filosofal, descubrió el fósforo. Mi abuela, Luz del Amanecer, era una india Kickapoo ella, decía que todos nacemos con una caja de cerillos en nuestro interior y que no los podemos encender nosotros solos. Necesitamos, como en este experimento, de oxígeno y de la ayuda de una vela. Solo que en nuestro caso, el oxígeno debe de provenir, por ejemplo, del aliento de la persona amada. La luz de la vela puede ser cualquier cosa. Una melodía, una palabra, una caricia, un sonido, just anything, algo que dispare el detonador y encienda uno de los cerillos. Now, cada persona tiene entonces que descubrir cuáles son sus detonadores para poder vivir, ya que la combustión que se realiza al encenderse uno de ellos, eso es lo que nutre de energía al alma, Tita. Si no hay detonador para los fósforos, entonces la caja de cerillos se humedece y ya nunca podremos encender uno solo de ellos. Hay muchas maneras de poner a secar una caja de cerillos húmeda. Puede estar segura de que sí tiene remedio. Claro que también es muy importante encender los cerillos uno por uno, ya que si por una intensa emoción llegáramos a encender todos de un solo golpe, se produce un resplandor tan fuerte que aparece ante nuestros ojos un túnel esplendoroso que nos muestra el camino que olvidamos al nacer y que a la vez nos llama a reencontrar nuestro perdido origen divino.